So hi, I wanted to show you my Tolkien collection. Now, I want to go through everything, basically books, films, any bonus things. But I will start with showing you my hardcovers, which are basically the editions I will read. Though I already do know that I will plan getting some paperbacks. I am often in a secondhand stores, and the the book I am actually showing you now is itself a 50th anniversary edition of a paperback of Return of the King. Now, when it comes to the books, to the Tolkien books, I have them in like with hardcovers. I will show you. I have them in Polish and I have them in English. Now I do also speak Swedish, so I definitely want to get the Swedish editions of the Lord of the Rings. The thing is, I tried reading Lord of the Rings in Swedish, and I am not very fond of the translation. And when it comes to Tolkien, essentially, the first time I go through, like the first few times I read the books, I want to read them in English because they are the most authentic. Then maybe move to Polish because that's my native language, and before then finishing off with the Swedish version, just to check how it is. And I believe there's like one or two newer translations. So I will want to read the original one first and then go to the newer one. Actually, in about an hour from when I'm recording the video, I am actually wanting to leave for a second-hand store to see if I can find any Tolkien. But yeah. So I will start with showing you this book. It is actually water damaged, but it is a nice old paperback. I will probably never read this edition. It is not the full novel, it's just Return of the King, so does it even have appendices? I think it does. Yep. So yeah. So here we have the first thing is the Polish translation of the Hobbit comic book. It's actually quite nice. I haven't read it because, well, I do like Hobbit, but I prefer Lord of the Rings, and I would even say if you're really hyper about reading Lord of the Rings, and you like don't feel like reading Hobbit, it is a great book. That's not what I'm saying here, but you could skip it. So yeah, actually I will show you before we go on. I have very old, very rusty One Ring. So yeah, which I just keep here. Now we have, unfortunately, this is the only edition I could find. I found it in one store when I was in Poland last time. It is the Polish translation of the Two Towers, and for my Polish viewers, if you Polish, I will show you. It is Maria and Cesare Frons who translated it. I would very like to have complete novel in this edition, but it's out of print. Then we have my first edition of the Silmarillion. Yeah, like this gorgeous beauty. Actually, I realized I don't have I have 4 editions of Silmarillion. Well, technically 3, then an audiobook. And every single edition of the Silmarillion I have is hardback. So I really want to pick up a paperback as well. This is illustrated by Ted Nasmith. I believe it is the only well, Silmarillion in itself is the only uh, book by Tolkien which is translated, well, which is illustrated by Ted Nasmith. Otherwise, it's either Tolkien himself or Alan Lee. Then we have Children of Hurin, the Polish edition, which is the first edition I have. Yeah, this one, these 4 books here are Polish books. So then we get into the English ones. So here we have the definitive edition of Lord of the Rings, in my eyes, which is the, I think it's 2020 edition or 2021 edition. It is gorgeous, and it is the complete novel with illustrations by J.R.R. Tolkien. So it's essentially, if you want to read Lord of the Rings the way Tolkien intended, I believe this is the closest way you can do so. Moving on, we have, I believe this is either first edition or one of the first editions, or like, reprinting of the first edition of the Silmarillion. I found it really cheaply in a secondhand store, and I immediately felt like, even without it being like possibly the first edition, I felt like I want to have Silmarillion in English, because that is the second edition of Silmarillion that I got after the Polish one. And this is I would probably read this one. It is the older George Allen and Unwin edition. It's not in the best condition, but like the dust jacket isn't in the best condition, but I believe that the book itself is actually really readable. But I have another edition of Silmarillion which I will probably read. Then we have essentially last year I decided to go out of my way and get the illustrated editions of both The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and that's when I got this edition, and I was pretty much done. Or actually, no, I actually got the 3-volume edition first. Then I seen this one, and I felt I have to get this. But one of the first books I wanted to get was The Hobbit. Now I do have a 3-volume set. I will show it at some other point in maybe part 2 of this video. So here we have The Hobbit, illustrated by Alan Lee. I believe it is the 2020 edition. Never read this copy. Actually, this one, the dust jacket, I really like the paper on the dust jackets for those. Like, those are my favorite editions of this. Unfortunate thing is, it came damaged. It's not very huge damage, but I fortunately got a... I didn't feel like I need a replacement, but I should tape it actually, which is the same thing I did here. And this one, I mean, if you tape it, it will basically be unnoticeable, I feel, even more so than this. And I don't risk tearing it more. So let's go into this beauty. Essentially, I had this, and it has the illustrations by Alan Lee, and I am a bit of a Alan Lee fanboy. I actually even managed to find, like years ago, few of the paintings by Alan Lee from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings in a secondhand store, and I have hung them on my wall for years now. So I wanted to have like the illustrated edition of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and so this is the edition I picked up. Now I am still debating. I sort of started rereading Lord of the Rings. I am currently chapter 2 of the second book. So when I'm saying the second book, no, I don't mean 2 Towers. It's not a trilogy. It's the second book of 6. So the beginning of, basically the middle of the Fellowship of the Ring, you would say, of the first volume. Yeah, those books are gorgeous. This is my favorite edition, and I'm debating if I should go on with this edition or with this edition. So yeah, then we have obviously the Two Towers, so Lord of the Rings Volume 2. Then we have The Return of the King. Now I have a Swedish paperback, 2 copies of the same Swedish paperback, which has same artwork on front, and I really love it. It is the Battle of the Peloton Fields, I believe. Now, we have what I decided it would be my final edition of the Silmarillion I get, especially in the hardcover. But since then, the publishers said, yeah, there's basically what they did with Lord of the Rings, basically the same version with illustrations by Tolkien. Yeah, they will release the Silmarillion in October with the same edition. I am picking it up. I'm sorry, I am definitely picking it up. I have to see this. I haven't read Silmarillion yet. I'm lying. I've read bits in Polish years ago, and it is I feel like I have to have time and I have to have right brain space to read it, and I want to get through the Lord of the Rings first. And actually, the part of the reason why I stopped then was I haven't still at that point read Lord of the Rings. So I only listened. I've read like the first volume like 3 times, and then those 2 I listened to the only ones on the audiobook. So I could technically skip Fellowship of the Ring and just start with the Two Towers. However, I did start reading Two Towers few times. However, I feel like when it comes to Lord of the Rings, it is my least favorite bit of the book. Is like the book 3, like the middle of the book 3. And even when it comes to the film, I don't really care much. Well, I don't really care much about Two Towers movie. However, you have to put it in perspective. I don't care as much about it as I care about the Return of the King and especially Fellowship of the Ring. So it sort of grew from there. When I was getting these, essentially the plan was to get these, and I got this one as well, and then I figured, oh, I already had the Bellon and Lúthien and the Fall of Gondolin, but I felt like, okay, it would be nice to have like the full set of them. So I went and bought Silmarillion. Then I also ordered the Unfinished Tales of Numenor and Middle Earth. I had a paperback edition, which I still have, but I felt like, okay, I have to have all of them in one set. So I also then decided, I believe, am I thinking correctly now? I believe when I bought 3 books, and I believe it was a Silmarillion, Children of Húrin. I did a few purchases basically. Children of Húrin and one more book, which I will get to later, which is non-Middle Earth book by Tolkien. So essentially, I was at first not really into the idea of buying Children of Húrin again, because I do have the Polish edition and I do have like the paperback, and I have the illustrated edition as well. And then I also discovered that Christopher Lee reads the book, the audiobook. So I felt probably when I will be reading Children of Húrin, I want to be reading Children of Húrin, I will basically be listening to the audiobook and then going in and possibly looking through the illustrations, which is something that I can do with this edition. So this is mainly, basically completion sake there. And I believe this edition is a bit dirty, or there's something with it which I now cannot let go of. Okay, Beren Lúthien. I bought this. It was like basically like a good deal. So I picked it up in 2019. It was even before I had like the hardcover edition, not this one, but my previous hardcover edition, which doesn't have illustrations. So I picked it up, and still I haven't read it. I know I have a lot of Tolkien, but only read so far Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I don't want to rush into it, but it is very interesting because this is not like basically the book about Beren and Lúthien. It has few versions of it, and I find it very interesting. And then we have the Fall of Gondolin, which I believe is the same thing as with Beren and Lúthien, where you have few different versions of the text and you see the evolution of it. So my later, like this is one of my later purchases. I got the Tales from the Perilous Realm. It was basically an afterthought because I do have exactly the same edition but in paperback, and I had it for years, but I felt like, okay, it's cool to have this one as well. Again, it's the same edition running through all of them. Then we have the newest one, which is The Nature of the Middle Earth, which basically I like the first time I'm reading those books, I want to go as much in the release order as possible, mostly for those that I own now. So this is the last one I will want to get through. I don't know much about it, but you know, for the better possibility. But after I gone through that, I plan on I plan on buying it sooner, but you know, I plan on starting reading the 12-part history of the Middle Earth. And the latest one, the third bit I bought with the Silmarillion, is The Fall of Gondolin. Sorry, The Fall of Arthur, sorry. This is possibly one I will read. It's possible that I might even read it. Like this, Beowulf and Story of Kullervo, like the you know, those kinds of books. I actually wouldn't mind reading them anywhere in my Tolkien journey when you know, whenever I please. So they are very nice because they give you perspective. They are not strictly, or they are not Middle Earth books, but they give you a perspective about Middle Earth. So that's what I like. So I will show you. Here is the shelf. I will need more space. Here are the Is it HarperCollins? Yes, the HarperCollins editions, which are my favorite ones. So basically, this is my Tolkien collection. Now, I don't know why, because I have a question. Why didn't Alan Lee illustrate Silmarillion? That would be because this one sort of sticks out as one not illustrated by Alan Lee. Then we obviously have the Unfinished Tales, which does have illustrations by all three main illustrators of Tolkien, who are not Tolkien, basically. And then we have The Nature of Middle Earth, which doesn't have illustrations altogether. So that is my question. Okay, and I'm not sure. I don't believe Fall of Arthur has illustrations either, but you know, it's not Middle Earth. So yeah. Now again, apart from me wanting to get like more translations of Tolkien, and basically this sort of edition of Silmarillion, but illustrated by Tolkien. The book I actually want to get is the original version, like the reprint of the original version of The Hobbit. That would be nice to have as well. And basically, apart from that, paperbacks for Silmarillion, well, I haven't finished those. Children of Hearing, Beren and Lúthien, Fall of Gondolin, Nature of Middle Earth would be nice as well. And then the ebook versions for all of them. I already have the enhanced editions of The Hobbit, so that's done. And I do have one more, like not one of those I have here. I believe is Sigrid and yeah, one of those which are not Middle Earth books. But Lord of the Rings is definitely high on my list, and the Silmarillion as well. And I do have audiobooks. I have two different versions of the Lord of the Rings. I have both the original version by, I believe, Rob Iglis was his name, and I have the Andy Serkis versions. I've listened to bits of the Fellowship of the Ring, basically like the middle of the Fellowship of the Ring. I've read, I only listened to, and it was the version by Andy Serkis. I like it, but as I've listened to the Rob Iglis versions between 2019 and 2020, I prefer them. It's something, while I don't dislike Andy Serkis versions, I certainly prefer the Rob Iglis ones. So there it is. Oh, and I will show actually. I have two more books actually. So here we have the maps, which are from this book, but I felt it's better to just keep them separate. And here we have Bilbo's Last Song, which I will read probably like just immediately after Lord of the Rings. And we have the Polish, it is a Polish translation of the, what is the original title? Damn. Don't you hate when you try to... Alright, let's see. The Atlas of Middle-earth. And then I do have another book, but I will not show it to you. It's possible that this is the same book, but in English. So yeah, that's what I have. Well, this is not all I have. It's just hardcover, mainly, of what I have. I do even have more hardcovers, but stay tuned for part 2.